At 26, I was living out of coffee and ambition. The kind of ambition that made you believe hard work could outshine luck. My name is Claire Dawson, and the day I stopped to help a stranger fix his car was the day my entire life took a turn I could never have predicted. It was one of those relentless Tuesday mornings when the world seemed to move faster than you could keep up. I was late for my third job interview that week, another marketing position that promised growth opportunities, but usually meant underpay and overwork. My shoes were damp from the drizzle, my resume folder was curled at the edges, and my old sedan was gasping its last breath somewhere near the intersection of Pine and Oak. I was surviving, not thriving. Rent was due, my savings were nearly gone, and my hope, though still stubbornly alive, was fraying at the edges. I'd graduated top of my class in business communications 3 years ago, but dreams didn't seem to translate into job offers. Every company wanted experience, but no one wanted to give me the first shot. So when I spotted a sleek black Mercedes stranded by the roadside, hood open, and smoke curling into the morning air, my first thought wasn't compassion. It was irony. A luxury car broken down beside a woman whose own vehicle couldn't climb a hill without protest. But then I saw him. The man standing beside it. Late 30s, maybe early 40s, tall, dressed in a charcoal suit that somehow still looked crisp despite the weather. He was staring down at the engine like it had personally insulted him. I should have kept walking. I had an interview to reach. But something, call it instinct, call it humanity, made me stop. "Car trouble?" I asked, pulling my jacket tighter. He glanced up, surprise flickering across his face. "You could say that," he replied, running a hand through his hair. "I think the battery's dead, but I can't get any response from the ignition." I stepped closer, peering under the hood. The smell of burnt oil hit my nose. "You've got corrosion on your terminals," I said automatically, pointing. "See that greenish buildup? It's cutting off your connection." His eyebrows rose. "You know cars?" I smiled faintly. "I know survival. Had to learn when my old one started dying every other week." He chuckled, a deep, calm sound. "You wouldn't happen to have jumper cables, would you?" I hesitated, then sighed. "I think I've got a set in my trunk. Give me a sec." A few minutes later, I was crouched beside his Mercedes, connecting cables like I'd done 100 times before. Rain misted against my hair, and the scent of metal and asphalt filled the air. "Try it now," I called out. The engine roared to life. He stepped out, genuinely impressed. "You just saved my morning. I owe you one." I shook my head. "Don't mention it. Just glad it worked." But he didn't seem satisfied leaving it at that. "At least let me give you a ride," he said. "Where are you headed?" "Downtown," I replied. "Harper Industries. I've got an interview." Something flickered in his expression. Curiosity, amusement, maybe both. "Harper Industries, you said?" "Yeah. You know it?" He smiled slightly. "You could say that." I didn't think much of it at the time. I was just grateful for the ride. The rain intensified as we drove. Inside the Mercedes, the world felt quieter, softer somehow. The faint hum of the engine, the warmth of the air vents, the faint scent of leather and cedar. For a few moments, I forgot how nervous I was about the interview. He asked me about my background, not in the mechanical sense, but in life. "I grew up in a small town outside Portland," I said. "My dad was a mechanic, my mom taught art. I guess I inherited a bit from both, practicality and imagination." "Sounds like a good mix," he said. "It used to be," I replied. "Dad passed a few years ago. After that, things got tighter. I've been working part-time jobs, doing freelance marketing gigs, just trying to find something stable." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's admirable. Most people would have given up." "Giving up doesn't pay rent," I said with a small smile. He laughed. "Fair point." When we reached the tall glass tower downtown, I turned to thank him again. Really, you didn't have to drive me all this way. He glanced at his watch. It was on my route. I didn't question it. I just thanked him again and hurried inside, soaked but determined. The lobby of Harper Industries gleamed like a monument to success, marble floors, polished chrome fixtures, and a receptionist who looked like she never smiled unless paid to. I signed in, clutching my folder like it was a lifeline. "Miss Claire Dawson," she said, checking her screen. "Interview with Mr. Callahan, 10th floor." I nodded. The elevator ride felt eternal. I straightened my hair in the reflection, tried to ignore the water spots on my blazer, and practiced my calm breathing. This was it. My chance to finally break the cycle. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into a modern office suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A woman in her 50s greeted me. "Good morning, Claire. Mr. Callahan will see you in a moment. Please have a seat." "Thank you," I said, perching nervously on the edge of the chair. The door to the executive office opened. I froze. It was him. The man whose car I'd just helped start less than an hour ago. The stranger with the Mercedes. He smiled. That same calm, knowing smile. "Miss Dawson, we meet again." For a second, I thought I might faint. "You're Ethan Callahan," he said, extending his hand. "CEO of Harper Industries." My heart stuttered. "You're the one interviewing me?" He nodded. "It seems fate had other plans for our morning." The next hour was the most surreal interview of my life. Ethan, Mr. Callahan, didn't read from notes or ask robotic HR questions. He asked real ones, about my ideas, my motivations, my failures. "What do you think separates good marketing from great marketing?" he asked. "Empathy," I said without hesitation. "You can't sell a story unless you understand the people living it." He leaned back, considering that. "Empathy," he repeated softly. "I like that." We talked about brand storytelling, about campaigns that inspired me, about moments when I'd almost given up but didn't. I told him about the nights I stayed up designing campaigns for small local shops just to build my portfolio, how I'd learned SEO through free online courses, how rejection after rejection had only sharpened my resolve. He listened, not politely, but intently, like every word mattered. Finally, he said, "You know, when I first saw you out there this morning, I thought, here's someone who doesn't wait to be asked for help. That's rare. Most people walk by." I blushed, unsure what to say. He smiled faintly. "You're resourceful, determined, and you think fast under pressure. Those are exactly the traits I want in my team." I blinked. "Wait, are you saying—" He nodded. "I'm offering you the position. Full-time. Senior Marketing Associate." I stared at him, speechless. "But you haven't even seen my resume." "I've seen enough," he said. "I've seen your character." I didn't cry right there in his office, though I wanted to. But that night, sitting on the edge of my small apartment bed, staring at the official offer email in my inbox, I did. Because it wasn't just a job, it was validation. Proof that hard work and decency still mattered in a world that often felt indifferent. The next few months were a blur. I threw myself into the work. Late nights, early mornings, endless brainstorming sessions. Ethan wasn't an easy boss. He was demanding, exacting, the kind of leader who pushed you past your limits because he saw potential you didn't. But he was also fair. When he praised you, it meant something. Gradually, I started earning his trust. He'd ask for my input during board meetings, assign me high-profile campaigns, and once even introduced me to a client as one of the best hires we've ever made. It was surreal, going from unemployed to indispensable. But success, I learned, came with its own complications. About 6 months into the job, we were preparing for a major product launch, one that could redefine Harper Industries' brand image. I'd worked for weeks on a campaign proposal that blended emotional storytelling with modern digital outreach. The night before the presentation, I found out another department had taken my concept, almost word for word, and claimed it as their own. I was furious. I'd poured everything into that campaign. I went straight to Ethan's office, hands trembling. "Sir, I need to talk to you." He looked up from his laptop. "Come in. What's wrong?" I placed my draft folder on his desk. "This is my original work. I just found out marketing development used it for tomorrow's pitch." He frowned, scanning the pages. "You're sure?" "Yes," I said, voice shaking. "Every tagline, every graphic concept, it's mine." He sat back, silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "Leave this with me." The next morning, during the presentation, Ethan interrupted halfway through the other team's pitch. "This concept," he said coolly, holding up a copy, "was developed by Claire Dawson from Brand Communications." The room fell silent. He turned to the other team. "Taking credit for another's work isn't just unethical, it's unprofessional. Effective immediately, this project is being reassigned under Miss Dawson's leadership." The other managers looked stunned. I sat frozen, my heart pounding. Afterward, he found me in the hallway. "You stood your ground," he said simply. "Never stop doing that." I nodded, speechless. It wasn't just about the campaign. It was about integrity, something my father had taught me long before he passed. Over time, Ethan and I developed a quiet friendship. Not romantic, not at first, but grounded in mutual respect. He'd occasionally stop by my office, ask about my weekend, or invite me to brainstorming sessions that were clearly above my pay grade. Once, after a late-night strategy meeting, I asked him, "Why did you really hire me that day? You could have picked anyone." He smiled slightly. "Because you didn't just fix a car. You solved a problem without hesitation. That's what leadership is." Those words stuck with me. But life, as it always does, had more twists to offer. A year later, Ethan announced he was stepping back temporarily. A personal sabbatical, he called it. The board had voted to appoint an interim head of marketing to oversee major projects. To my shock, that person was me. The day I took over, I sat in Ethan S.'s office, the same place where I once stood trembling during my interview. The same leather chair, the same city skyline. He walked in, smiling. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" "Surreal," I admitted. "I keep expecting you to walk in and tell me it's all a prank." He laughed softly. "You've earned this, Claire, every bit of it." I hesitated. "What if I mess up?" "You won't," he said simply. "Because you care, and that's the hardest thing to teach." As he left, I realized something profound. My journey hadn't just been about getting a job. It had been about becoming someone capable of leading, of inspiring others the way he'd inspired me. Under my leadership, Harper's marketing division hit record engagement levels. We launched campaigns that told real human stories, stories about perseverance, empathy, and connection. One of them even won a national award. Months later, Ethan returned. When he walked into the office, everyone stood and applauded. But when his eyes found mine, there was a different kind of pride there. Quiet, genuine, personal. He said simply, "Told you you'd do great." I smiled. "Guess I just needed the right jumpstart." He laughed. "Touché." Later, during the company gala, he raised a toast. "Two unexpected moments," he said, lifting his glass. "And to the people who stop to help a stranger and end up changing both their lives." I felt tears sting my eyes. Looking back, I often think about that rainy morning, the one where I almost kept walking. If I had, my life would have stayed stuck in the same loop of job rejections and quiet disappointment. But I didn't walk away. I stopped. I helped. And that made all the difference. Because sometimes opportunity doesn't come knocking. It stalls by the roadside, waiting for someone kind enough to notice. So, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Never underestimate the power of small actions. The life you dream of might just begin with helping a stranger fix their car.